Hey, everybody, I am Crystal Berger, journalist turned innovator, and you are about to get to know me with Raven Paris.
So first, I'm going to start off by asking you, what is the newest thing you've learned about Crystal during this quarantine?
Wow, that Crystal was never taking a break.
Mm,
I was always going, and really just didn't do enough self-care,
mhm.
self-love, and actually applauding myself, in the process. So I just realized that I really need to take a deep breath and just focus on getting to know me again. So that's what
Mm.
quarantine has taught me, to get to know Crystal again.
I love that. I love that. All right, now let's go into the next one. Speaking
Hmm.
of getting to know you and all over again, let's go back to your childhood. What kind of
Mm.
kid was Crystal growing up?
I was a very imaginative child. So I would say when my parents divorced, I was about 7 years old. And
Mhm.
so my dad and I were really close, and my mom and my brother were really close. And so when my dad left, or my parents divorced, I felt like I was just on an island by myself, right? So I was the little girl that went in the basement and had her Barbie dolls, and I could
Yep.
be
Me
in
too.
my dream world, for hours and hours. And so I would say I was a very imaginative child, and also just a very smiley kind of child. Like I always had like a spirit of laughter. Still
Mhm.
to this day, I love to laugh and
Yep.
things like that. So I would say I was always a happy, joyful child, but very to myself. To myself.
Yeah. And I think a lot of times that go into who become as adults because you still
Mm,
smile, you still dream big, and that stemmed from you being a kid, right? So while we're
yeah.
still talking about you tapping into your mind a lot and just creating your own fantasies, what was that one song or that one celebrity that you idolized and sung in the mirror growing up?
Oh, now you're gonna make me age myself,
Come
Raven. You're gonna
on.
make me age myself. But Whitney Houston, I mean, Whitney
Ooh.
Houston, yeah, she was all things brown girl. She was beautiful, pretty smile. She was skinny like me,
Mhm.
tall, all those kinds of things. And so, like, when I saw Whitney Houston, I saw like her light. Like, I saw how she could just like radiate in a room. And it was just something about her energy that was like truly, it was like divine, it was like divine. And so I remember singing like, I want to dance with somebody. I want to feel the, yes.
Yes. But
Yes.
Whitney was so beautiful as you look back at like her videos
Mm,
and her pictures. Like
mhm,
she was so beautiful and so godly. Definitely rest in peace
mhm.
to her. Now let's go into what are some things that you like to do outside of work. So when Crystal isn't working, what are some things she like to get into?
Girl, I love to watch Martin. I watch that on rerun, repeat all the time. So, to get my laughter in. Another thing I really have started to embrace, Raven, is just working out, like getting to know my body. Like I have a new goal of getting stronger, because
Mhm.
I was always like thinner and lean growing up.
Yeah.
But as we age, things
Yes.
change.
Mhm.
And so I've gotten into the habit of really enjoying going to the gym, challenging my body, kind of seeing how your mindset really can
Yeah.
supersede anything, right? So I think just really reconditioning my body and things like that. What else do I love to do? I love
That's
to
really
cook.
essential. I noticed that too. I want to go back to the workout part because as I'm
Mm,
approaching 30, I realize my
mm.
body is not working the same. Okay. So that's so important, like you said. Um,
Mhm.
and let's go into food. Because you're gonna go
Okay.
to food, okay? What's your
Yes.
favorite food that you like to eat? Like what is that
Ugh.
two main things you could not live without and that you could possibly eat every day?
Ooh. I would say crab cakes, because I'm a
Oh,
Baltimore girl all day. Right. Crab cakes, and I would say rice. Like I love rice. I probably shouldn't have rice at my age,
what
because like
kind?
you said, um regular old white
Really?
rice in the bag. No brown rice, no quinoa. Like
Yeah.
I like some good old white rice that your
Mhm.
grandmother would make rice pudding with, and she would put some gravy on top of whatever you needed it to do. So I'm a rice girl, and it kind of can go with almost anything.
Anything.
Yeah, for sure. And so but again, like you just said, when you
Yeah,
get a certain age, your body can't handle all of that stuff like it used to. So
it's
but I
true.
would say crab cakes and rice. You give me those two things, I'm good.
Okay, they some good ones. They good ones. Okay, now let's get into some books. What
Mm.
are some of your, are you a reader?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Avid.
What are some of your favorite books and authors?
One of my favorite books of all time was Sister Soldiers, The Coldest Winter Ever.
I
Um,
that
you
book.
never read the book?
Oh,
Oh my God, Raven, you
no.
gotta read it. You gotta read it. Being a girl growing up in Baltimore, a lot of the elements that we deal with in this, growing up in the inner city,
Yeah.
that story of winter just really spoke to me growing
Mhm.
up, like where I was, a lot of the things I was seeing happening in my community.
Yeah.
And so I would say that was a dynamic book. Another book that I would say I really enjoy is The Four Agreements. The
Mhm.
Four Agreements is a book about, how you can, no matter what happens in your life, if you make these four agreements with yourself, then it can transcend any situation, right?
Wow.
And, it's just a beautiful, beautiful book. So The Four Agreements is another one of my favorites. What else is another? This gonna sound corny,
What?
but I read my Bible every day.
Come on, Bible.
Come
Let's get
on,
into
Bible.
it.
Come
Let's
on,
get into
Bible.
it. We gotta get cleaned up for real.
Yeah, yeah. I
Mhm.
mean, because you think about it, every life lesson, everything that you stand on, depending on what you believe, but I'm a Christian. And
Yes.
so I try to tap into
Yep.
absolutely,
Mhm.
every day because we can lose sight of who we are and
Yes.
what we really stand for if we're
Mhm.
not connected. So I'm intentional about reading my Bible every day, even if it's just a verse to meditate on.
Mhm.
That's something, yeah,
Mhm.
that's another book that I love. And it's always a number one bestseller.
Come on. And people don't understand that, like, in order for you to, in any
Mm,
relationship, in order to become intimate with that person, with that spirit, with that thing, you got to
mm,
study it. So that Bible
absolutely.
allows you to do that, to really, how you want to have a relationship with God if you're not really taking the time to get to know Him, you know? So
Mhm,
thanks for definitely putting
mhm,
that out there. I'm with it. Now let's go into, you spoken like how the coldest winter, you was able to connect yourself, see some of yourself in it, or just see some of the experiences from that book and
mm,
connected with you. Now, what has been like an experience or a situation that happened in your teenhood, in your childhood, that was
mm.
definitely probably traumatic, but shaped you as an adult?
Ooh, it's a few. It's a
Mhm.
few. I mean, if we're gonna go on the coldest winter ever lane,
Yeah, yeah,
I'll leave the person nameless, but
okay.
the my very first love was somebody who was a very dangerous person. Prayerfully, his life has changed. And I was in a situation where because I didn't fully love myself at the time,
Mhm.
I allowed a lot of disrespect.
Mhm.
I was in a lot of bad situations with this
Mhm.
person. And it was traumatic in the sense of because I was still so chaotic on the inside, I thought
Mhm.
that chaos was love. You
Mhm.
know, yeah, I
Mhm.
thought that, the mistreatment or the dismissiveness or the disrespect, right,
Mhm.
was love. And so, as a result of that, I was
Mhm.
in a lot of different situations that could have totally like intercepted my
Yeah.
future,
Mhm.
but again, thankfully, I am connected to a higher power. I do
Mhm.
have a family that prayed for me and prayed that person out of my life to
Mhm.
where one day I woke up and was like, yeah, this ain't it,
Yeah.
Um, but overall, it was just a relationship that was just toxic. Like, there was no future planning in it.
Mhm.
We didn't know what we wanted from one another, and we
Mhm.
both were in very low places. Like I said,
Yeah.
I came from a single parent family.
Mhm.
I was very, very lost in the situation. And also,
Mhm.
very early on in my life, I was molested when I was 10.
Wow. Okay.
And so, I didn't have that self-love. And then you
Mhm.
meet someone who you kind of
Mhm.
think is loving
Yeah.
you and because they show you attention.
Mhm.
But this
Mhm.
person, came from a family where his mom was addicted to
True.
drugs. He didn't have a relationship with his father. He was in the
Mhm.
street selling drugs. And
Mhm.
so, it was chaos on top of chaos. And
Yeah.
so, the trauma that came from that was that I had to really regroup and find my self love
Mhm.
and find my self worth and
Mhm.
realizing that it didn't come from him. It was something that was inside of me that I needed to deal with. Yeah.
Mhm. That is so powerful. And I
Mm,
salute you for even just being open to talk about that, because you're not the only woman who has been in a toxic relationship. And
mm,
a lot of times when we are in these broken spaces, we find other broken people, and it just don't end up being a healthy dynamic. So due to you being able to go through this, you've been able to grow and grow
mm,
in love and just grow in better positions that you're now in, right? Due to that
mm.
experience. So shout out to you, Crystal, for that. And I know that's
Thank
going to
you.
help somebody. So now talk to me a little bit about what you've been working on now.
Mm. Well, it's been a journey. I'm on this journey that I told you, Raven. It's like from journalist to innovator. So I was at the number one cable news network, the number one market in the nation for a decade, just really learning the news business. Had a national news feature there, a national podcast. Just really been blessed in the
Mhm.
space of being able to actually live the dream that I had when I was a little girl that I could imagine, right? And so, one thing about being in that space, though, was as you know, in our industry, working in media, oftentimes there are very few faces
That
or
look like ours.
voices. Absolutely. And
Mhm.
that's not just in front of the camera or behind the mic, that is behind the scenes, making the
Yes.
leadership decisions, bringing people into the door. And so, for me, being in the newsroom for almost a decade as the only Black woman in my newsroom, I was uniquely positioned there for a reason. And I realized, Raven, it was to be able to bring people in and on the platform that traditionally wouldn't be able to be on the platform.
Yeah.
And so from that work in the newsroom, I realized that what happens when Crystal's no longer in this seat? What happens when I'm gone? Like, how do these voices get heard? How do these perspectives get seen on air? And I decided, well, just create a technology to do that.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I
Yes.
created a technology that is truly a streamlining to getting people on air who actually deserve to be on air, who
Mhm.
just don't have that person in the room advocating for them. And
Yeah.
it's like, the work I see you do more oftentimes than not, Raven, you're always pulling
Yeah.
people in, pulling people up.
So
And
important. Mhm.
absolutely, it's critical because if
Yeah.
we don't do it, then those people won't ever
Right.
get access. Yeah,
Mhm.
so I'm
Mhm.
building a technology. It's called
Excellent.
EBO, and I am one of the small 2% of female founders, and I know the number of Black female founders is even smaller. And
Yeah.
so I'm just excited to be in that technology space.
That is so amazing. I always say we got to be the example that we wish we had or didn't have. You get what I'm saying?
Mm,
But that's exactly what you're
mhm.
doing. How can more people be involved? Is there an age limit on this program that you're putting together?
No, so it's a free for all. If you have an expertise in any industry, right? You have a credible voice, and it could be from you may be a young designer, right, who knows
Yeah.
about merchandising and fashion, or you may be someone who has been in the legal profession for 20 or 30 years. You can go onto the website, it's expertbookingsonline.com, and it's a platform for you to just go in, sign up. We vet you for media, we make sure that you're ready to go to be on
Mhm.
air. And then once you get through the vetting process, it's like, hey, let's go, let's make it happen. And so there's no age limit, there's no race limit, there's no gender limit, because I realized that all of those things have
Yeah.
been barriers to entry in
Yeah.
media. And so I wanted to create this technology to be able to give voices and perspectives that deserve to be heard the opportunity. So we have no limits on that.
I love that so
Mm.
much. Well, thank you so much for taking your time out to talk to me today. I'm looking forward to it. Tell everybody how they can follow you, how they can support you.
Yes, you can follow me anywhere online at CB Inspires. Support, share, like, but more importantly, do like what you're doing, Raven. I want your viewers or your listeners to just really be committed to the pull up. So pull somebody else up along the way, and that'll be enough follow for me.
I know that's right.
Thank you, Raven, so
Of
much.
course.